So, like I said, yes, when people ask how to begin, I think the primary thing to do is to collate whatever you've got, just compile it and build it into a portfolio. You may not want to spend anything initially into a website or something. There are a lot of sites which allow you free hosting. There are a lot of portfolio sites wherein you can just have your work uploaded and you can showcase to your prospective clients.
Right.
So I think you can just start it without any investment. I mean, of course, the camera and the gear is an investment, but apart from that, as a business, photography is something which you really just start without any other investments.
Hello, hello. This is your host, Dyutima, and welcome to My Food Lens podcast, where we talk about everything from food photography, styling to business and mindset. After 15 years as an architect, I switched careers and I'm now a professional food stylist and food photographer based in Singapore. I'm also the founder of the business My Food Lens, where we help clients elevate their brand through drool-worthy photos. My motto is put your best food forward. Well, here on this podcast, I promise to keep it raw and real and hope you find your answers, action, and inspiration as we move through the episodes. So today we are talking to Abhishek Khanna. Abhishek is a food stylist and commercial food photographer based in Gurgaon, India. And the thing is, he's not just a food photographer, he also does architecture and product photography. And what's interesting is his journey to photography. He's been a photographer for almost 5 years or more than 5 years now. And he started his corporate career in a call center. And from that, he moved into product management, operations, and the way he's brought all of that, his experience, his learnings to photography and how he runs his business and how he has made it amongst one of India's best food photographers. It's really a journey to be heard. And I can't wait to have this conversation with him because he brings a very cool perspective. He's a very inspiring person and he has won so many different awards. He's also been featured in many different magazines. If you shoot Indian food or if you've ever shot Indian food, there is no way that you have not heard about Abhishek. Abhishek is a rock star when it comes to making Indian food look appetizing and Indian food shine on the screen. And he's going to leave us with a lot of inspiration and also a lot of information about commercial food photography, what goes on behind the scenes, what it takes to be a commercial food photographer, how it was for him, what were the challenges, what was his gear, who are the clients, just every single thing. So let's get started. Hi, Abhishek, and welcome to My Food Lens podcast. It's an absolute pleasure, an absolute delight to have you here. I mean, if there's anyone who's ever shot Indian food, there's no way in the world that they haven't seen your work and they haven't come across your name. So you can imagine my delight of having you on the other side today, and especially to talk about a topic like commercial food photography, because God knows you're a boss at it. So before moving forward, I think, Abhishek, it would be wonderful if you could just briefly introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you, Dyutima, for having me at this session. And I really love talking about my work. And I really love connecting with people who share the same passion for the field that I am in. And it's a delight having this conversation with you. A little bit about me, guys. I'm Abhishek Khanna. I'm a commercial food stylist and a food photographer based in Gurgaon, India. And I've been doing this as a profession for almost 5 years now. And well, that's about it.
It's amazing. Like to see your journey of the last 5 years, it's pretty incredible. And I know that, like many photographers, you kind of tiptoed into photography from a corporate world. I mean, I kind of have a similar story, but
Right.
tell us, how did you get into photography? Because I know that you don't just do food photography, you have many different avenues that you shoot. But so tell us how you got into photography and how did food turn out to be one of your areas of interest?
It's not been that long that I bought a camera and like started exploring photography. I mean, it was just the early months of 2016. That's almost like 6 years ago. I had bought my first camera then. I was fond of photography, but it was more like phone photography. When I used to travel, I used to do it from the phone, and I was not that keen about pursuing it with a camera. So, like I said, it was early 2016, and that is when I felt that okay, this is something which I'm like really passionate about, and I think getting a camera would really help me polish my skills and learn more about photography. So that is when I decided to do that. Fast forward to end of 2016. Well, I was out of my job that time. Once I left my job, I did not take up photography immediately. I mean, I had like a couple of months with me. Firstly, I traveled for a month. I thought I had worked really hard for the last 15, 16 years, and I kind of needed a break. And
Right.
I traveled around Rajasthan for a month, and
Wow.
I was exploring photography, doing travel photography, doing portraits, and all kinds of things that I could just capture. I was clicking. So, like I once heard that your first 10,000 photos are your worst. So
Yes. Yes.
for me it was like I need to click as many pictures as I can, because that is the only way I
Wow.
can really
Okay.
look back and see, okay, this is how I've come so far, and this is how I've improved my work. So I was just doing it for the fun of it that time. I spent good 3 4 months or turning this into a profession, because I really wanted to be sure in my head. I always wanted to be in a corporate role. I was not keen on getting into a business, though I belong to a business family,
Right.
but I was not really keen on doing that. And for me, photography was something which I really loved doing, but I was not sure whether I could do this as a profession and I could do this day in and day out, even on the days when I'm not motivated to do it. So when it turns into a profession, you just have to like push yourself to do it every time with the same level of motivation you started with.
Exactly. Yeah. It's tough.
So yeah, so for me, that was the only thing that I wasn't sure of. And once that was sorted in my mind, that is when I thought, okay, now this is something which I really can do now and take up as a profession. Initially, I did all sorts of assignments. I shot a friend's, his daughter's birthday party. I've
Okay.
shot corporate events.
Wow.
I've shot like what all I've like done almost every kind of photography in the start, just to practice and polish my skills with the camera. And food was something which I really like. I am a hardcore foodie,
Right.
so food is something which is really close to the heart. And I used to blog
Yes.
about it. I used to write
Okay.
about it as well.
Okay.
So yeah, so I used to do a little bit of writing as well. Like I used to share my travel experiences or blog about places that I visited, and more of a storytelling kind of a blogging that I used to do earlier.
Yeah.
So that's about it. And food is something, like I said, it's just me. And I had to eventually get into food photography, because I think that was really my true calling.
It was your love for food. But tell me, Abhishek, what was your past life? What were you doing before you were a photographer? What role, what industry were you in?
So I am a college dropout, and I really haven't completed my graduation. Though I have attended 3 years of college, but that was only outside the college, never
Yeah.
went inside. Well, jokes apart, I started working when I was almost like, I think, I guess 21 or something. I was
Wow.
like in my
Yeah.
first or second year of college that time.
Right.
So that is when I started. I started my career with call centers. I was working with small scale BPOs. I used to do telemarketing and all. Then I
Yeah.
gradually moved on to like international call centers. And then from there, my shift happened. I joined a friend. He was into manufacturing furniture. So I
Okay.
worked in the furniture industry for 4 years. Then
Okay.
from there, my ex-boss called me to join his startup. So my last job was as a senior product manager with a tech startup in Gurgaon. They were
Okay.
into financial sector. So
Right.
I was more of a product guy there. I was doing designing of the user experience and writing product documents and all of that. So again, I don't have any formal training for that. Even for photography, I don't have any formal training. So I think what makes me going for like all these things is really the need to feed my curiosity. And like every time I get into something, I
Yeah.
really want to do it with like all my heart. So that's about it.
No, that's such a great example because this is something that I totally believe in. And if someone ever asks me a question, if I ever give anyone an advice, for me, it's always like, if you feel like you have a calling, answer it. And I think that you did it so brilliantly. I mean, to be at the beginning of 2016, to just be kind of exploring this, toying with this idea of photography, and then knowing that those 10,000 photos need to be done, and whatever it took, you did that. I mean, that is fantastic. So this clearly shows that you really don't need formal training, education, degrees to find yourself as a professional, and it can be any damn field.
Right.
So tell us, at what point, so you were doing all these photography assignments, sometimes of friends, sometimes covering events. At what point did you feel like, okay, I feel ready now, I can turn it into a business? Like, how did that come about, that you were like, let's make the jump now, let's take this leap of faith now? What was that tipping point?
So I had, like I said, I had been at home for really like 3-4 months after leaving my job, and I was still figuring out things. And like I said, once I had made up my mind, okay, this is something which I really want to get into now. So what I decided was to first move out of my house and take a small co-working space nearby, because I realized for the fact that you cannot just work on plans and do things at home, because you have
Right.
a lot of things happening around, and you need to devote your time there as well. So you're not able to just do something with like long duration and just give it your time. So that is when I felt that I needed a space wherein I can just be alone and like do my work and then just concentrate on what I want to do next. So my first thing was to get to a co-working space fairly near to my house, so no stress of like driving and all. Once that was done, my next goal was to build a portfolio. So a lot of people ask me how to start or how to get into food photography. So I tell them that the first thing that you need to do is build a portfolio. You may not necessarily have works for clients that you can show, but you can show anything. So like
Right.
my first portfolio was built with pictures that I clicked when I was visiting restaurants to eat with
Yeah.
family, with friends.
Yeah.
I used to carry a camera along and take pictures there. So that is how my initial food portfolio was built. I even
Yeah.
had a children photography section there, which I don't have now, because then I eventually realized that
Hmm.
I purely wanted to get into like advertising or like commercial photography. So, so like I said, yes, when people ask how to begin, I think the primary thing to do is to collate whatever you've got, just compile it and build it into a portfolio. You may not want to spend anything initially into a website or something. There are a lot of sites which allow you free hosting. There are a lot of portfolio sites wherein you can just have your work uploaded and you can showcase to your prospective clients.
Right.
So I think you can just start it without any investment. I mean, of course, the camera and the gear is an investment, but apart from that, as a business, photography is something which you really just start without any other investments.
Right. And it sounds like you kind of always had this at the back of your mind when you were practicing your photography skills, that you would turn it into a business, that you would give it a shot. And you kind of worked on it even as a hobby and later on as a skill with that in mind. Is that right to say?
Well, not really. I was not really sure whether I would be one day practicing photography as a business.
Okay.
Uh, so I really wasn't that sure about it. I was happy doing my job, but it was just a trigger of events that happened. The company was doing cost cutting, and they were really short on funds, and they had to let some of the senior members go. So I think it came as a blessing in disguise for me, because I was too much into my comfort zone for like
Right.
15. Like I told you, I was like working for 15, 16 years. I guess,
Yeah.
I think I was almost 34, 35 that time. And like I had crossed my teens, and now I was like in my mid 30s,
Yes.
comfortable in my role. And you work 9 to 6 and you get a fixed salary at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So as comfortable as it can get. I mean, one just needs a push to get into things. For me, it came as a blessing that I had to leave my job. Otherwise, I don't think I would have really thought of getting into photography as a business. I
Yeah.
was exploring other things such as travel photography, travel writing. But when I eventually left my job, I realized that you really cannot do it as commercially as other genres of photography. So it takes time to build on. Then travel photography is something wherein you have to invest from your pocket. You have to travel to all these beautiful places and
So true.
spend your money on it. I mean, I do love traveling and I still do it, but then now I have a means to fuel my other passion for
Absolutely.
travel photography. So one passion is getting me business, and I'm now using that to also follow my other passions. So yeah, like they say that money isn't important, but yeah, it is important to
Yeah.
like follow your passions and realize your dreams. So you need finances for that.
Absolutely. Money becomes a medium to get to your
Yeah.
dreams.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
right. See, money is important, but for me, it's a byproduct of the kind of work that I do. My focus is on doing good work, and
Yes.
rest everything will automatically fall in place.
You bring up such an important point that you did not get into food photography or photography in general because of glamour or because of the money or because of anything else. It was your love for this creative field that brought you into it. I think for those who are contemplating whether they should be here or not, I think you bring up such a great point that money cannot be the criteria to decide. That's
Yeah. See,
fantastic.
because if you can love your work, then there's nothing like it.
So you took that space and then you found this zone where you were, finding your creative spirit. But how was it different from your 15, 16 years of being in a corporate life? What were the differences that you were seeing? Well, and what were the challenges or the pressures that you were feeling, that because it was a new business after all? So what was all that?
Like I told you that I had worked in different industries and at different positions and different fields. So that kind of really helped me when I decided to do this as a profession, because all of that experience was really helpful, because I had worked in the furniture industry where I was working as a director managing the entire operations. And for me, it was more like a business only. So, and we used to deal with all five-star hotels because our clientele was majorly the hospitality industry. So I kind of was already into that kind of audience, talking to them. And plus, I was also managing a lot of operations. So for me, all the things that I've done in the past 15 years was kind of, it all just fell in place, and it just helped me here. Last profile, I was into doing making Excel sheets, capturing data, and a lot of that things, and make processes and define steps on how to go about something. So I think all those learnings in the past 15, 16 years have really helped me. And I mean, I've just applied that to my profession. I was not keen to become a businessman, but I do belong to a business family. So I guess the business acumen kind of is already like inbuilt. Maybe I didn't realize it earlier. And I'm just polishing it now.
So were there any things that you found exceptionally difficult as you went into this new career? Was there any pressure that you felt, maybe financially, maybe the pressure, like any other struggle that you felt right in the beginning?
Yeah, of course. Financially, I'm married, I have 2 kids. And so you already have a lot of things on your plate to take care of. So when you're working, you know that on the 31st of the month or the last day of the month, you'll get your salary and then you can manage your expenses. But when you're into a business and when you're just starting out, and I may have been working for a very long time, but I did not have a lot of savings with me that I could use for longer periods. So for me, it was very, very critical that I had to crack this as soon as possible, and monetize it as soon as possible. So yeah, finance is definitely a challenge, because initially I remember I used to work with natural light because I just couldn't afford getting into continuous light or any other kind of artificial lights. That time I had a very basic camera. I was using a Canon 700D. And I used to shoot with that. And I shot for almost good, out of 5 years, I shot for good 2.5 years with that. So for me, yeah, initially it was like wait and watch. And I was just waiting for the opportunities to come in. And then whatever I earned from them, I used to invest it back in the business and then again churn it out. I remember I was once shooting a corporate event. I was just getting paid like 1,500 rupees a day. For that shoot, I went ahead and bought a flash that was for almost like 9,000 rupees.
Oh my God.
So because for me, the objective was that my shoot should happen seamlessly. And this is an investment. I can do 3-4 more couple of shoots, and my price of this is already compensated for. So I think for me, what was important was whatever I was earning, I was just pumping it back into the business. And I was then kind of multiplying it and investing in it. So initially, it was difficult with funds and all, but I just stuck to it. I just held on to it, and I said to myself that
Yeah.
I don't have an option. I will not give up.
Exactly. You work like your tail is on fire.
Right.
Yes. So you said that you also did blogging and you were writing some recipes. So my impression of social media is that a lot of food photographers on social media today have a very editorial style. And especially if you are creating for a blog, then your style of photography, your style of writing is somewhat editorial. So how
Yeah.
did you decide that you were going to go the other route? Because commercial photography is a lot different. The process is a lot different, the way you would execute it. So how did you decide that commercial work was really where you wanted to be?
Jyotima, commercial photography has actually changed a lot in the last 5 years or so. And I would say that I was one of the early movers in this industry when commercial photography was just changing into a different kind of a genre and more of a casual. Brands were like they
Right.
were taking more of a casual approach towards their photos, and they wanted what we call as mood shots or conceptual shots. Earlier
Yeah.
commercial photography was not about mood shots or conceptual shots. They were
Yes.
very, very product centric, and it was like very, very like food specific and very much focused on the food. But what happened gradually was, as social media came in, and in India, like like internet is like very huge here,
Yes.
and in metro cities people rely on apps such as Zomato, Swiggy, and that time there was even Uber Eats that which was operational. So
Right.
these corporates and these companies created a huge demand of photos online. Earlier what used to happen was, in commercial photography, a brand would get a shoot done, say today, and for the next 5 6 years they were just going to use those photos over and over and over again. But now what has changed is that even like smaller restaurants, cloud chains, and everyone, if you are on online portals, you need photographs to sell. I think that has just created a huge demand for food photography now. And like I said, it has changed
Yeah.
from very hardcore food centric photos to more of casual photos, because social media, it really works about like telling a story to your audiences and your
So
viewers.
true. So true.
So that has really changed, and I have really observed that change. When I first started out, I started out with Uber Eats, and what they demanded was, so I guess I was the oldest one there, because all the other photographers were like young college going students.
Yeah.
And but for me it was a good break, and I said that I need to learn, so I'll take up whatever comes my way. So I was doing Uber Eats that time, and they kind of pushed the photographers to conceptualize and like style the shoot or the shot themselves, and plate the food themselves and then shoot it. So earlier
Hmm.
commercial photography was more about people playing their own independent roles. There was a food stylist, there was a prop stylist, there was an art director, there was a photographer. So what these companies did was, they bundled all of them into one person, and they said, "Boss, it is your responsibility. You go to a restaurant and you do the shoot." And these were not like very high paying shoots. These were very simple shoots, because I used to shoot like 5 or 6 restaurants in a day.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so they would
Whoa.
like say, give me an area in West Delhi, and they would give me restaurants nearby. I would just go visiting them with all my crockery and everything, and
Yes.
like shoot five pictures each at every restaurant, and just just come back.
Oh my God.
So
Wow.
like
Yeah.
commercial photography it has really changed now. Now
Yeah.
restaurants want pictures almost every month. They want images, because they have to be in the business and they need content, because right now it's all about content and people want good photos of their food. So
Right.
commercial photography has really evolved, and I would say that I think I made a good call that I moved into it immediately when the market was just starting out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and because of my experience and my age, I think I had that competitive edge, that I was able to understand the business more, or rather understand the business side of it, and
Yes.
immediately apply it to practice. So yes, commercial photography, what it was 5 years back or 8 years back, is totally different. It's a lot of things have changed, and it has just evolved to a whole new level of conceptual and mood photography.
That's so interesting because honestly, I can sort of see that in your photos as well. I can see that there is a sense of storytelling. I mean, there is still a sense of it being very commercial and that kind of,
Right,
boldness to it, very clean. But at the same time, there is an aspect of storytelling which is relatable, natural, kind of the editorial
right.
style. This is such good information. Loving it. So tell me, how did you start? Like, I know that you were going to all these restaurants and you were like hopping and you were doing 5 shoots, but What gear did you start out with? Did you have enough, or did you slowly build it? And what was your key gear that you started shooting as a commercial food photographer with?
I built my gear and everything. It was a slow process. And like I told you that I used to work, and then I used whatever I used to earn, I used to invest it back in the business and do stuff. Initially, I used to work with just two boards. I used to carry a kind of a jute, kind of a rug or something, which I used to use up as a background. I even used to carry floor tiles and whatnot. I mean, so whatever I could afford that time, I
Yeah.
really wanted to make the most of it. And
Yeah.
I worked with a very basic gear. I was working with a Canon 700D, and I bought a 50 lens along with that. Initially, I had a very flimsy tripod. So whatever I have done so far is it's purely from my experiences. And when I've understood why people work with this kind of gear and why not the other kind of gear, so I have then eventually gone for it.
Yeah.
Initially, I had no clue about how to light up my shots, how to use artificial lighting. So I used to work with natural light. I used to go to restaurants and I told them that we have a time bracket of so many hours and we have to finish the shoot between that time, because then the
Yeah.
natural light is gone.
Right.
A lot of people come to me that how easy it is to work with flashes or strobes. As a layman, if you see it from the outside, I mean, it looks very, very technical, and people really hesitate into getting into artificial light photography. But once you get into it, I mean, you can just do anything with lighting. And for me, it's lighting is the only thing about my work, and I just like to keep the lighting very, very dramatic. And for me, I believe that lighting really plays a key role in photography. Initially, I worked with very basic gear, and as and when I felt that now I needed to upgrade and
Yeah.
it would really help me take my photography to the next level, that is when I made the move. And I had to be sure why it is needed. And I mean, will it solve any purpose or will it contribute to what I'm doing right now? So that is when I made a move, and I understood the pros and cons. And that is when I used to invest in gear very carefully and very subtly,
Yeah.
uh, and like gradually building all my inventory and having all my props, my gear, and everything in place. I mean, it's something which I've built over the past 5 years,
Yeah.
and not from like day one.
That's such a smart way to go about it, and also such a wise way to do it, because so many of us look at, oh, this person's using this, and then you go and buy it, and then you're like, oh, that's not even my style, that's
Yeah,
not even what I need, and then it's just
right,
sitting
right.
out there. And especially if you spend a lot on different kind of lenses, and half of the time that's just not the kind of lens that you would either use in a commercial shoot or your personal work, so it's just sitting out there and you bought it because someone else said that it was very cool.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's such a smart way of doing it. So because you did not start from an industry which was connected to photography, did you have a tough time finding clients, or was it easy? Like, did they find you? And how were you putting the word out in the market? How were you marketing yourself as a commercial food photographer?
Yeah, so when I had bought a camera, I was very, very active on social media, and I was kind of sharing my travel stories, my pictures, whatever I used to click, I used to like put it on my social media and share it. People used to see that, okay, so this guy is doing photography, or like maybe as a hobby, but yeah, so they got a gist of it that, okay, he's doing something. And eventually, when I turned it into a profession, so it kind of helped me because people knew that I was already doing that for interest. And now, since I had turned it into a profession, people knew. And initially, all the work that came to me was through references. And again, I
Hmm.
was, like I said, I was very, very I'm very much into social media. I mean, I don't let it kind of bother me that I need content every time to share something. But when I say I was very much into social media, what I mean is that like I like to explore it and I like to make best of it and put it to my advantage.
Right.
So my initial clients were all from like Facebook and all. People used to post in photography groups and all that we're looking for a photographer. And of course, since I was starting out, and like I said, that conceptual photography was just picking up that time. So I had that kind of portfolio, which initially people used to like.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got my initial clients. And Uber Eats was one of my first clients. So I was like, almost for 6, 8 months, I had absolutely nothing to do. And then these guys, again, they posted on Facebook that they were looking for food photographers for their platform, and I just applied. I shared my work, and that's how I started doing it. So yeah, initially it was kind of difficult also, but I knew how to get to it. So I was not on Google, I was not on anywhere else. I was primarily on Facebook, where people were doing
Mm.
posting their
Yeah.
questions, and like there are a lot of groups on Facebook where you
Yeah.
can just post
People are
anything that you
looking
want.
on Facebook. People are looking on
Right,
social media.
right. And I was there. I
You
just
were
want
there.
to be present on every platform as possible. So today I'm on Google, and I built my website on my own. I do the SEO on my own. So everything is like I've done it on my own. And you search me on Google, you find me on the first page. I'm kind of very much like into like technical things, and like making the most of it for my
Yeah.
own advantage.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be there. I want to be present, so that if even if somebody looks for a photographer, they see my name there. So at least they know who I
You're
am, and they get
there.
to see my
Yeah.
work. They
Yeah.
get to see my work. So I
Amazing.
think it's about being present and being visible.
Yeah.
And even today, a lot of my work comes from references. Like I may have shot for somebody, or maybe one of my friend mentioned my name to somebody, that okay, you looking for someone, take
Yes.
this person, or speak to him. And even there are a lot of people who just follow me on Facebook. They never interact, they never comment on my pictures, but even they end up recommending my name to others. So it's all about being present, and like you need to be there. So if somebody thinks food photography, they should think me. I mean, that's how I want
Yes.
to be present all across these platforms.
And also, you must have done a really good job, because people don't give references of people who don't do a good job. So, obviously, your work was also speaking for itself, and so was word of mouth. So, social media, word of mouth, and the quality that you brought to the table, I guess that was all playing a part.
So there was this kind of group which was like purely commercial photographers. They were like into very high end shoots for big brands. And then there was a kind of a group which was more like young and very college people who were just who were working for Zomato, Uber Eats, and Swiggy, and all these food platforms. And there was a kind of a big gap there. And so the commercial photographers were like, of course, their level of work was very different from the level of work that all these youngsters were doing. So I kind of bridged the gap. I was like, uh, so what happened was the younger guys were, they are usually, so when you start out, you usually charge less. You don't know what to charge. So like, uh, I don't know what the industry standards are. I just charge what I feel is justified for my time and effort. So like a lot of people ask me, sir, how do I charge, and what should I charge? What is the right amount? So I don't know what the right amount is. I just charge what I felt was right. And so I realized that though these people were kind of, they were doing a decent job, but they were very very inexperienced and very very like young. They lacked that professionalism, the way that you normally deal with your clients or work with your clients. So I think it was an advantage to me that since I had a lot of experience
Yeah.
and I had worked a lot before, I understood how to deal with people, how to be professional, how to have everything in place, that the way you send your quotations, the way you do follow-ups, then when you're on the shoot, the way you behave, like how you have your team around you. It really is your work that matters. But yeah, these things do really matter in the grander scheme of things. That
100%.
I mean, what I'm really happy today is that all of my clients that I've worked with, I have a very good relationship with them. I even tell my clients that I love doing your shoots because I just have fun over here. I mean, your shoots are like that. So I just love working with you guys. So, A, we are having fun. B, we are doing good work. And C, we are also keeping it very, very professional as well. You
Right.
need to maintain that decency, or maybe have that line. There's a very fine line there. So I think it's a combination of all of those things that really help you
True.
get more work eventually.
Absolutely. And there's no substitute to giving good service to a client. I mean, more often than not, they come back because they like working with you and the experience that you give them of
Right.
working with yourself. So, totally with you on that. So, your clients are these
Just
very,
to just to add to
yes.
it, I even used to get calls from people who would say that we have a shoot tomorrow. Why? Because the photographer canceled at the last minute. So
Oh,
I mean,
no.
and that really happens a lot. I mean, people are looking for food stylists and food photographers
Oh, my
that they
God.
want someone tomorrow because somebody just canceled. I mean, in my 5 years, I've never ever canceled a shoot. I know, like I was working for a client, and they're one of my oldest clients, and I was not doing well that day. I was kind of I had a very mild viral that time.
So, but I still went ahead and did the shoot because that
Yes.
day we were eventually to shoot their MD as well. I had to do a portrait of their managing director as well, and I felt that canceling would not look good. And since I've
Yeah.
committed it, and I think I'm in a shape that I can go to the shoot and do my best. So I said I'll go. I'll continue with it. So I don't know if it matters to the client or not, but to me it matters because if I'm saying something and I'm not doing that, I mean, end of the day, I need to sleep peacefully. So,
Yeah.
I really want that.
No, but I'm
So
pretty certain that it matters to the client because do you think they called the other photographers who canceled? Do you think
yeah,
they ever
right.
called them again? Never. Well, you were the
Yeah, of
reliable
course. I
guy,
mean,
right?
yeah, it matters, but yeah, I mean, it matters to me more before it matters to
Sure.
them. That if
Yes,
I have said that
absolutely.
I'll give you the photos in 3 days, then it has to be 3 days. It cannot be
Yeah.
that something has gone wrong or this has happened. Yeah, there
Yeah.
are problems, you face challenges, but then if you already are punctual and good in dealing with them, they will also understand. People understand that
Absolutely.
mishaps do happen, and sometimes you fall on your timelines. But then,
Right.
if you're repeating it every time, then there is certainly something wrong.
Yeah. Clients love to see integrity. And I think that's what you're bringing to
Exactly.
them. So you have a
Exactly.
you have a ton of like amazing, very fancy clients, very prestigious clients. And you are now in the other group. You are in the other snooty group now. So
I think it's still a long way to go, actually.
no, but the thing is that that's what you worked. You worked your way up. You worked so hard for it. And from what I'm hearing from you, you enjoy all kinds of work and you bring quality service and experience to the table. But when you started out, was there any specific kind of work or a specific dream client that you had in mind?
I don't know if I had anything going on in my mind that, okay, this is the client that I really want to work with. But yes, there are some clients that I really wanted to get into because we have always like grown up looking at the pictures on the billboards and inside restaurants. And ever since I became a photographer, I used to walk into a store and just see a picture there and I would say, wow, look at that. Then I would probably imagine myself that how would I feel if my picture is there tomorrow and people look at it and say that. So yeah, of course, in the back of the mind, it is always there. You really want your work. I mean, whenever I see my work getting displayed, I'm always as excited as I was the first time that I saw it. For an artist to see your work visible and in places wherein people can see it, it makes them. People say that if your food pictures can make the other person want that food, then your job is done. For me, when people see my pictures and they say that I feel like picking it up from the screen, it's a very big compliment. And I feel that my job was well done. So I can then pat my back, okay, that you did a good job. So for any kind of artist, that is very important. And you really want to see your work everywhere. I love doing it. I love doing it for myself. That
Yeah.
experience is it's totally rewarding. I mean, though you don't need any acknowledgement from anyone that you're doing good work, but still
Yeah.
you are
Okay.
human and that's not how your mind works. And
Yes.
there are days when you're feeling really demotivated. So all these things really keep you going.
Right.
So when I started, like I said, there were months when I had no work and I was just sitting at home doing nothing. And it was all building up on me that what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? I remember it was a Monday and I just picked up my camera and I went to this monumental site in Delhi, Qutub Minar, if you've heard about it. I just went there and did some photography there. I was alone. I was doing some architectural shots and some kind of landscape shots at the place. And when I came back, I saw the pictures and I felt very happy. It kind of boosted me that. And those are the times when you're down, when you're low, and when you don't feel like getting into that mode. All these incidents that you've happened, they just keep on pushing you to do more every time. So I think acknowledgement is good because you will have days wherein you're down, you're demotivated. And when you get to hear that people find your work inspiring, I mean, for
Yeah.
me, what is inspiring is that people saying that my work is inspiring. And I think all these things really push you. And every time I get behind the camera, my mind is like that I have to give my best and I have to do my best. So I think all these things really push you and they really make you do good work as well.
Amazing. So we talked so much about like what it takes to maybe start a photography business and challenges, mindset, clients. Let's talk a little bit about the shoot. what it takes to execute a commercial shoot. All right. So we start from the pre-production phase. What is usually your process? Do you do a pre-production meeting, and what is it that you plan in that meeting?
Commercial photography is now very much different. There are a lot of avenues inside commercial photography. So there is commercial photography, and then there is restaurant photography. Though it is commercial because you're doing it commercially,
Yeah.
but then there is a lot of difference there in both of them. So
Right.
when you're working with bigger clients, and let's say you're working with clients such as McDonald's or Domino's, big brands, big QSRs. So they have a very defined way of working. They'll usually have a mood board. They'll have reference images.
Yes.
They'll have information on what angles the shot has to be taken,
Yes.
what kind of lighting is needed, and what kind of ingredients can be used, what kind of props have to be used. So everything is like very, very well defined and structured.
Yes.
And usually there is a planning which happens before the shoot. There is an expectation setting that is built between the client and the photographer. And also in commercial shoots, I normally work with a different stylist. I don't style my own photos because the food also has to be prepared from scratch. So
Right.
I usually, what I do is I hire a commercial stylist who will do that for me, and then we work together like a team. But when we talk about restaurant photography, it is very, very different, because usually when I work with restaurants, there is a basic sense of kind of shots that they want, or basic sense of what exactly are they trying to achieve. Let's say if it's a fine dining restaurant, or maybe it's a small cafe. So the look, they have to differ from each other. There is a kind of sense of initial thought process that goes into it. Okay, this is how I want to do it. But then restaurants are usually, they are very open to what you have to say. For example, I work with a lot of clients wherein I've told that this is how I want to do this shot, or this is how I want to do this shoot. And they have been very open and willing about it. And all my restaurant shots that I do, most of them are like on the spot conceptualizations. Even like I recently worked for this brand called Jaisalmer Gin. And I'm very proud of the work that I've done for them. And I'm really happy how the pictures turned out.
Yeah.
They were all like conceptualized on the spot. We had a fair bit of idea of the kind of props that we are going to use.
Right.
In fact, I even had a stylist with me on that shoot, and we were like just working together, because since I have that knack of doing styling for my own shots, so I always
Right.
like to get into control and do it together. So I think that's also an advantage, because I can also think like a stylist, and I can also contribute to the whole shoot as a stylist. And so for the shoot, like I was even doing the art direction, like planning. Okay, we knew what the props were. We knew that, okay, it's a Valentine's theme, and we had already sourced the relevant props beforehand. But then how we wanted to do the shot, what color should we make the drink look like, and it was all like on the spot. I remember there was one of the shot. It's one of my favorites so far.
Yeah.
It's not been published yet by the client, so I'm just waiting for them to release it so that I can post it as well.
Right.
And so Jaisalmer Gin is like the word Jaisalmer. It's very Indian, and their tagline says the royalty waits. So it's kind of like that. So the client was there on the shoot day, and I asked them that if you are okay if that we go with more of a kind of a vintage kind of a look, or maybe use some rustic elements and kind of a royal. But I just had
Jaisalmer,
yeah. So I just had this random thought in my mind that let's give it some. We were doing a lot of other shots were like Christmas based, New Year based, Valentine's based, and some were random shots. So this was one of the random shots. And I told them that let's do this. If you're okay, then we can do this. And the client was like, yeah, we are good enough. You should go ahead. And then I sat down with the stylist, and I asked them like if they had a chessboard available, if they had this, if they had that, and everything was arranged in a matter of like half an hour or something.
Wow!
And then we did that shot, and the way it turned out, I just love that shot, and I'm just waiting for the client to see it. So that
amazing! We can't wait to see it. Is it on social media yet? No.
No, it's not on
No, it's
social
not
media.
either.
No,
Okay.
I
Yes.
cannot release it before the client
Before they,
publishes it.
yeah,
So
well,
yeah,
we can't wait to see it. It sounds amazing and it sounds very
yeah,
creative. It might sound royal, but it's also very contemporary to have something like that. You might
yeah.
be over a game of chess having a glass of gin, and it's very, very cool. That shoot sounds like you could really did bring storytelling. So there are some clients for which you have a pre-production meeting where you would have very strict guidelines, the art direction already set by the brand, but there are some other brands that give you that kind of thing to kind of play around and see where your creativity can take their brand, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, perfect. And so when you're not the all-in-one on the set, when you're not doing everything, who all are there on the set? Do you have someone who's separately doing food styling, art directing, prop styling, set styling, and then do you have assistants? How crowded is the set? Is it a full house? Who all are there?
Yeah, so commercial photography, it's like there is always a team. You'll have the creative team who is supposed to use the pictures and make creatives out of it. And then you'll have the marketing agency or the someone from their team there to like maybe guide you on what the product can be like made to look different and how it can be made to look different. Then there is a food stylist there. Of course, you have the client with you there to give you approvals on the spot. I am there, a photographer, and then I have assistants with me who are usually there to help me set up my light and everything. There is always usually a like a art director too. So kind of in commercial shoots that I've worked with, the kind of the art director is also playing the same role as the one who is from the creative agency and who's gonna
Right,
work with his team on the creatives and all.
right.
So usually they do all the art direction. But I've seen in other cities, I've seen people also work with the prop stylist whose job is to just source the props.
Yeah.
And there are like all kinds of different people involved. So far, what I've worked on is with a separate food stylist and an art director, and of course, then you have the whole team of like me and my assistants. That's about the shoots which are more of commercial. For restaurant shoots, it's usually me. In a lot of my shoots, even the client is not even like they're just not there. They let me do my job and they don't even look at the pictures beforehand.
Oh,
So
wow.
the restaurant shoots are like that. I mean,
Yeah.
and I am lucky to have few like, I mean, lucky is not the word, but there are certain clients which are not even there on the shoot, and you're just working there with your assistant, and
They
then
trust
you
you.
have
They
the
trust you that
yeah.
they
So
are, yeah.
there is a restaurant staff around, and you just get your work done. They've given you the free hand. You have the control. You can ask the kitchen to make anything you want. So that's how it works. Also, then there are restaurants wherein you have client is the only one who is doing the creatives as well, and they have a guideline as well. But then you still have that creative space or that freedom in that restricted space. But when you talk about the commercial kind of shoots, they're very technical. They're very kind of, you can say, mechanical, and
Yes.
if you have to go from A to Z, then you have to go from A to Z by following the alphabets.
Yes,
So
yes.
so there are all kinds of clients and all kinds of requirements. And like I said, commercial photography is very, very different now. So you get to work with all
Right.
kinds of brands and all kinds of people. I have worked with home chefs. I have worked with big QSRs. I have worked with small restaurants. I've worked with cloud kitchens. So I think more and more people that you work with, it just adds on to your experience, and it's always a learning to get
Absolutely.
to work with all kinds of clients.
So when you don't have the client on set, how do you get approvals? Do you send them the selects later and then they choose their favorites, or do you usually do get approvals on the spot? How do you do it?
Firstly, some of the clients are like remote. They are located in a different city, and they've just sent me the product and they want me to shoot. And if I'm working for the first time, then yes, I would always send them the picture, maybe the initial 2-3 pictures, just to get a hang of that. Okay, we are moving in the right direction. This is what you want.
Right.
Once that is done, then I know that okay, we are on the right track, and we can just continue doing that. Because so eventually it kind of lengthens the process of photography, wherein you are clicking the picture, forwarding it to them, then you're waiting for an approval, and say like after half an hour you've already cleared the whole set, and now the client has a feedback that okay, change this, which is not possible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
usually the initial first 2 times that I would do that, or maybe client has a different kind of a requirement that I'll just share some pictures to understand and give them a hint that, okay, this is what I'm doing now, and are
Yeah.
you okay with going into these lines? So once that is done, and once you've worked with them for like a couple of shoots, and then you gradually have that comfortability with each other.
Yeah.
They know that what you're gonna do, and you also know what they want. So then you can just do your job without anyone around you.
All right. And you already determined with the client in your pre-planning phase how many photos you need to give and all the other details. So you know exactly that at the end of this is what you need to
Yes.
deliver.
So
All right.
and I like to keep all of that very clear and very well explained or informed. That
Yes.
because I like the right expectation setting to happen beforehand.
Yeah.
I don't want any surprises on the day of the shoot, because when you're there and you have something in your mind, you planned it, and now you're there, and
Yes.
suddenly something happens at the last minute. I mean,
True.
it gets very difficult. If it's not in your control, you really cannot do anything. But whatever is in your control, I prefer to sort it out beforehand. Like, tell them that these are the number of images that I'm going to do. These are the number of pictures you'll get. This is the timeline, and everything is like, I tell them that give me the list of the dishes that you want, that you have to be shot. I mean, I don't work like we want to do 10, 12 dishes, and we'll just decide what we want to do on the spot. I mean, it will not happen that way.
True.
Because I'll be probably sitting and waiting for the dish to arrive, and I'm just ending up wasting my time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all these things have to be like well communicated in advance, so that when I'm on the shoot and I'm doing my job, then I'm just thinking about the job. I'm not thinking about whether the client will pay me on time, or whether the client will tell me at the end of the shoot, okay, let's do 2 more pictures. So all of that is like sorted and clear, and now your focus is purely on the work that you're doing. So,
absolutely.
I like to take away all the distractions as possible.
Right.
As many
all the decisions are made and before the shoot, and then you just go and execute on the shoot.
Right.
Fabulous.
Like, ask them if they want bright backgrounds, if they want dark backgrounds, if they want to go for a dark look. So these are basic things that can be first clarified, and then just when you're doing there, when you're on the day of your shoot, you're just doing your job then.
So true. So you work primarily with Indian food, right? So, and you are also a stylist, and you're also the photographer. So what are some of the key things that you'll say is very important to keep in mind when you're photographing Indian food? Because the world finds shooting Indian food like scary, difficult, and intimidating, right? And you do it so well. So what would you say are the key considerations while shooting Indian food?
Unlike any other food, it's all about colors, the textures, and the meat. And what's different in Indian food versus other food is that our food is generally very, very oily. I mean, not oily is not the right word, but yeah, we like to work with a lot of oil, butter, cream, and spices, and all those things. I mean, they are like a core ingredient of our food. And so when I'm shooting, let's say I'm shooting something like a tandoori chicken, then I really want that glaze to come across.
Yes. Oh gosh.
I mean, that shine on the food. I mean, I would usually brush it with some oil before I take the final shot, so that it does not look dry. But Indian food is all about that glaziness and that texture and that color in it. Other kind of food, let's say if a foreigner sees Indian food and they say, oh my God, this is too oily, I just cannot imagine having it. But I think Indian food is majorly about that. And for me, Indian food is all about getting your highlights right, and your colors and your textures right. The marks on the grill marks on
the char on the tandoori chicken.
It's just the whole package. And what's best about Indian food is, and what I love is that it's cooked yet very, very raw, and I like to keep the scenes very, very
rustic,
raw and rustic, and like give them a very casual feel. Maybe sprinkle some black pepper powder on the board, and just give it a very casual yet a very not a messy kind of look, but a very organized mess kind of a look. I really like to shoot Indian food like that. And I think Indian food comes out better always when you have that whole rustic vibe to it. You can shoot Indian food in a minimal way as well. But for me, food photography is about showing the true characteristic or the nature of the food. So Indian food, like minimalism and Indian food is like, they are different. So of course, if somebody wants it, I do it. I don't mind doing it. And yes, I am not saying it will not look good. It's all about what comes to your mind naturally.
Yeah. And that's your style. That's your style.
Yeah, right. It's my style of photography. And I would say my style of photography is all about like rustic and very, very those kind of frames. So I think it comes to me naturally. And of course, I've shot a lot of Indian food in the past. And
Yes.
I think for me, it's kind of a crash course, all these 5 years that I've shot Indian food, that now I'm very, very comfortable shooting Indian food now.
Yeah, you're like, bring it on. nothing nothing intimidates you. So my take on Indian food is actually the opposite.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, I mean, you're shooting Indian food, and when you go home and you like watch for dinner and like you same dal and same paneer, and like, I'm not gonna have Indian food now. I mean, you're looking at it all day. Your fingers, your clothes are like smelling of it. And when you go back home, you get to say, okay, we have ordered food from outside, and we have ordered Mughal. No way I'm gonna have that.
No, and then you're like, this does not look pretty. Gosh. So my take on Indian food is always a very modern, a very contemporary, and a very different, like I go the opposite direction. I myself am that person. So I feel like that's how I interpret Indian food, which is non-rustic. So I guess the style matters. But I think the key takeaway for me, like what you explained, is we really need to showcase the flavors through the food. And whether it's the spices or the texture of whether it's a cauliflower or paneer or chicken, it should really come through, whether it's submerged in a curry or not. As photographers, we need to convey that to our audience. I think that was definitely a takeaway for me from,
Dyutima, it's also about bringing the whole character of that dish. I mean, like I said, when I was talking about that Jaisalmer Gin shoot, I was saying, when you think royalty, you think of something. When you think India, you think of something. So I think when you think of Oriental food, then you think of that kind of decor or that kind of elements around.
Right.
And for a viewer to connect better with your food, it is always about working with what they are thinking when they're going to think of that food or think of that cuisine.
Yeah.
So I think it's very, very important there. But yes, like you said, that your style of doing it is very, very modern. And I remember I once got an inquiry for a rice brand, and though it's an Indian basmati brand, but their market was purely Europe. So they wanted very, very kind of continental shots, like ceramic crockery and all of that to be done in clean, minimal frames. So yes, what you want to communicate is also relevant. Since I'm working for the Indian market, it is something which comes to me naturally.
True.
So I would rather stick to my strengths and because I know I can bring out the best of the food in a particular way. And I also recommend my clients also sometimes that since it's a cloud kitchen, let's not use very, very ethnic or like brass or copper crockery.
Absolutely.
Ceramic pots or maybe clay pots for the shoot, because you are a cloud kitchen and you want to portray to your audiences that, okay, we are not a fine dine or a gourmet restaurant. When I'm working with restaurants, then there is a whole different approach to Indian food. I like working with rustic props because then you're showing you're selling expensive food. If I'm shooting a cloud kitchen, which is catering to, let's say, a younger audience or to people who are staying alone in the metro city, if I make the food look very, very rich with rich utensils and props, I mean, the person who watches it will think, okay, man, this is expensive food. I'm not going to have it every day. So let's say if I'm working in a city and I'm staying alone and I want food, I want to order something. Fine dine restaurant is something I'll probably order once a week, maybe. But normal kind of food which I want to eat daily for my lunch, breakfast, and dinner, it's going to be as expensive or as rich as that. So to understand what your client is trying to cater to is also very important. And we always want that we get a free hand and we do the shoot the way we want to do it. So yes, Indian food is something which I love shooting, and I think the whole style of it comes to be very naturally. So
it also shows in your photos for sure. So it's definitely a strength.
That's why how the pictures come across to you is because for me it is very, very but naturally.
So have you had any like difficult clients or difficult projects or any scary like client stories that you want to share with us?
Not exactly with clients, but I have faced issues when doing my shoots sometimes. And I remember I was doing this shoot for some organic food products like oil and something, and I was shooting some bottles, and I mean, that was really, really difficult for me to do. I was just not able to crack the light that time. I was not able to get the lighting on the labels right. And the labels were all like glossy and reflective and all, like it was showing in the labels and all. So I was just not able to crack that lighting. I was doing this shoot for the first time, and I was first time working on such a product. So I had no idea that it would turn out so difficult. I did one of the simpler bottles I had already shot, and then I just got stuck with the remaining products. And I told the client that I really cannot figure this out. We need to close this session today. Let me think of it and how we can get back to it. So yeah, I have failed. I have failed in a lot of shoots. There are shoots in which clients wanted something, and I thought that, okay, this is my vision and this is what I'll do. And I ended up creating that. But unfortunately, the client did not get it, or they were not able to relate to it. So I mean, it has happened, but for me it's all about learning from it, so that next time when I'm doing it, I'm able to do it better. So like I was not able to do those like bottles, and I told my client that so I told them, give me a day and let me figure out how we can do this. So the next day I told them that the kind of setup that we are working in, we will always have this restriction of getting your whole label to look like seamless. And the way to this is either this or that. So I think one should be like willing to admit that you've goofed up. And most important is that from your goofing up, you're able to understand that what was going wrong, and next time when you get into it, how you can solve it. So it's all about, I mean, you will always face challenges, and you will always have issues. But what's important is that you admit that you failed, and then you work on how to resolve it the next time you face such a situation. I mean, you don't just give up and say that next time I'll not do these kind of shots. So of course, if I'm not interested, or if that is something which does not interest me, something else. But for me, experimenting is very, very important, and trying out different things during my shoots is also like very, very important. So I remember that I have worked with brands wherein for every shot my lighting was different.
Oh man.
I was like changing the lighting every time I was doing a shot. One shot is harsh light, other shot is soft light, other shot is a mix of both, other shot is more like a warm tone. So I really like to play around with the lighting in my photos. And I think if you can control the light in your photos, I think nothing like it. It's photography is purely about lighting.
Right.
So for me, the biggest challenge is always to figure out the lighting. Once I'm able to do it, and I try to like play around and make sure that the food should look the hero, and it should look the best. So I have faced challenges, but then I have figured my way around it.
Yeah. And I think what you say is so important, that we kind of have to admit that to the client as well, because there are many folks who would probably do the shoot and say, sorry, this is the best you can get, and take it or leave it. But you said, give me some time, I'll come back again. And if you need to redo, you would redo it, because that's the service that you provide. That is what you want. You don't want the client to be like, okay, this is what you sign up for, here's what you get. You're giving them the best product that you can. So I think that is a very, very, very powerful approach.
Right. And you can tell them that I tried, but unfortunately I cannot. And I think it would be better that if you look for somebody else who can do it for you.
Right.
See, end of the day, what is also important is that you're not hampering that relationship with your client, and also eventually the job should be done. So either you do it, or you recommend them that, okay, this is something which I cannot do, or this is not, like I was not able to figure this out. Yeah. So it will be better that instead of you waiting for me or holding on to me, you go for somebody else and you get your job done.
Yeah.
So like even today, when people reach out to me, and a lot of restaurants, they reach out and they would seek a quotation, I would give them a price offer. There are times when people find it out of their budget, because then there are all sorts of photographers, people working in different budget segments, different clients. And then they ask me that if I could refer them somebody to do this job for them. And I'm more than happy to do that. So even if they're not hiring me to do their job, at least I was able to give them something, so that next time when they have that budget, or maybe when they know that they'll always come back to me, right? Why to shut somebody down? And And it's okay if you can help somebody get their work done or get their things sorted. I mean, there is no harm in doing that. Even if it does not give you any returns, it's still fine. You were able to help somebody, and you were able to advise something to them, and they were able to get that thing right. So I think that's what's more important, that your advice worked and they got what they wanted.
That's really incredible and very, very powerful as a experience or a service that you can provide to a client. So tell me, what are your current struggles as a food photographer?
It's like in any other business, there are always ups and downs. Like the past 3 years have been very challenging, especially for the F&B industry. The F&B industry is the one which is impacted the first, and it starts moving the last when everything like falls in place. So the restaurants and the hotels are first to shut down, and they're always the last to open. So I think last 3 years have been really, really challenging in the way the whole business has like shifted focus. It has become very, very like consistent, especially after the second wave. I remember when the first wave hit and when the lockdown had just opened, that was probably the busiest year of my whole 5 years. Once the first lockdown had opened, because people were just waiting, and they were the restaurants were closed, and now since they had opened, they were just willing to get to the market. They knew that the people, the customers will be spending money because people were at home, they were bored, and now they wanted to go out. So I think after the first lockdown, it was kind of very, very busy for me. They took a big hit after the first wave, but then they were still recovering. But then when the second wave happened, I think it was just purely a wait and watch game, that brands said, okay, let's see what happens next, and then we'll probably start pumping in more money. So of course, they were more concentrated on just getting their food to the people, and with whatever they had with them. Marketing was, marketing was happening, but they were not putting in much budgets into that. So I think the past 3 years have been really, really different. I would not say difficult, but yeah, they have been different because the whole industry has become very, very price conscious lately. I mean, even like big brands, they've now started to reach out to all kinds of photographers and get photography done at as low as possible. I mean, the whole situation in the past 3 months has changed the whole mindset of the industry. But I'm pretty much confident that now, since things are gradually again picking up, and just like in any business, you'll always have your ups and downs. You'll always have your peaks. You'll always have your low periods wherein there is very less work. But overall, I think right now it does look very, very promising, and I'm hoping that it will just bounce back again the way it was before. And I think that it will probably be even better than what it was before.
That's my hunch too.
Yeah, so it's kind of my intuition, and kind of my gut says that yes, it's gonna
come back stronger, and maybe it's we're being optimistic for sure. Superb. And so tell us, like, if we had to ask you, like, what are the next 5 years, or what is the road ahead looking like for you?
Well, how often do we plan something and usually we get to it, but I really haven't figured that out. I mean, I often say to myself that maybe 5 years down the line, I may not be doing photography. I may be doing something else. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
I don't. Right now, yes, I would say I want to do photography. I want to continue doing this, but I don't know 5 years down the line what. But yeah, what I do see for myself is, or rather what I would want to be at is, like, apart from doing what I'm already doing, that is photography, I really want to get into more of the whole conceptual shots and all. So I really want to get into more of very, very kind of dramatic shots. Maybe like you're able to do something like maybe just 2 shots a day or 1 shot a day. So maybe do something which hasn't been done before, change the whole perspective, like change the whole art scene around food photography. I also see myself getting into a book. I would not say that I'm very, very qualified right now. So yeah, like I said, maybe another 5 years down the line or 4 years down the line, maybe I'll be in a position wherein I can say that, I am somebody who is an authority on food photography, and I can then share my knowledge in form of a book with others. I would also like to see myself maybe doing some mentoring sessions, or maybe doing some
Yeah.
sharing my stories with people, audiences, doing those kind
Yes.
of. So I really look at myself like that,
Yeah.
and I don't know. So like I said, I don't know. That's what I want to do right now, but let's see how it happens and how it falls in place and what happens. Because like Steve Jobs said, that you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only do it looking backwards.
Oh my
So I
God,
don't
that's
know.
amazing.
I don't know how
Yes.
the dots are. I don't know how the dots are going to connect. But let's say 5 years down the line, and I'm then looking back and I'm saying, okay, so I have reached here because this is what I did that time,
Yeah.
and this is how it has all connected, and this is how it has all fallen in place.
Yeah.
So right now, my approach is that I do it the way it comes to me, and if I feel that this is something which I want to do, I'll do it. I mean, I'll go for it. I don't know whether I'll continue doing it for the rest of the time. If I get something in my mind, okay, that this is what I want to try now, I'll do it.
Yeah, that's exactly how you are here. And so, if there is something that feels like you're calling, you give it a shot and you give it your best shot. So,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So, I have one last question for you, and that is, what would be your number one advice to someone starting a food photography business?
Well, number one advice. So this can be a very, very like a specific question also, and this can be kind of a very, very like a wider or a deeper question also. So maybe I'll try to share both from my experience. As a very, very photography centric or very, very profession centric, I would say that, like I said, that you start with the portfolio, then you start reaching out to people. But I would also say that you really don't need any expensive gears to
Yeah.
like do photography. A good camera is not something that makes your picture. I mean, of course, as a technical person, if you get into it and like go into details, then definitely there is always a difference. And but as a layman, you don't need very expensive gear or very high-end equipments to make good photographs. I mean, if you have the knack of it, if you have the eye for it, then even with very, very simple tools, and like I said, I started with the very basic camera, and I used to work with natural light. You don't need to spend lavishly to start this profession. You can start at whatever stage you are right now,
Yeah.
gradually build onto it. And because somehow there is this huge kind of a like a balloon that people feel that, okay, photography is about like one light here, one light here, and like so many people on the set, one is doing that, the other is doing that, and like you have a lot of people are doing this, and then there's a lot of post production happening. Yes, it is like that as well. Commercially, yes, it is like that. It was like that always, but now it has changed. Now the focus has changed. Now, so like I am a stylist and a photographer built into one. I'm not like two people working on the set. I'm one person working on the set doing two things. So the whole focus and everything has changed, and I think the market is very, very good right now. I think last 3 years or so after lockdown, there has been suddenly a huge wave of people who are getting into food photography, because of course there is a lot of business as well, and there is no entry barrier. If you're confident about your work and you understand your gear and you understand your tools, then you just have to make the best of it. I mean, you can give a camera to anybody, but as long as they don't know how to operate it or how to get the desired results, I mean, it's of no use. Even you can use a very expensive high-end camera also, but if I don't know what I'm doing, then I really cannot do anything. So I think my advice is that start with what you have. At least start. The advice is to start. Like, don't overthink. Start with what you have, practice and implement. For certain shoots, I used to go out and rent out the equipment, which I felt that, okay,
Yeah.
this would help me do something better. So I would just go out and rent it and start using it. Just rent them out, use them, and see if they really work out for you. And that is when you can take that decision. So initially, the core focus should be to just do your work. I mean, just do good work, because eventually that's gonna pay you. And good work is something which will just fuel the engine and it will keep it running for the next couple of years. So I think people like ask me that the client is asking this, what should I tell them? They want to use this photo there. Should I quote them higher? So I tell them that you're just starting out right now, and right now the main focus should be to get as much work as possible, because the more number of assignments that you'll do, the more experienced you will get. Next time when you're talking to that client, then you already know what they're trying to say, and you already know what to say. So I think initially it is do all sorts of jobs that you get, and just like at least start with it, because they are only helping you build your portfolio. Do not work for free. If somebody is using your work for their commercial interest, then I mean, you need to be rewarded in return. It's your hard work, it's your effort. And of course, I feel that when there is a monetary thing involved, then it becomes more professional as well. Otherwise, if there is no, like I said, the right expectation setting, if it's not there, then you will go there thinking that I'm going to shoot 5 dishes, and the client ends up putting 15 dishes on your table that shoot all of these.
True.
So I think that's when the disconnect happens. So be clear, tell them what you're going to deliver. And I think good communication is really a key when you're starting out. Tell your clients that this is what they want and this is what you'll give, so that the expectations are right. You don't want any disconnects. You don't want any one like not meeting the expectations, because then it puts you in a bad soup. So do what you say you will do. And I think that just takes care of all of it. If you do what you say you will do, then it just sorted then.
So true. That's amazing. I think those are really key to making it as a photographer. So Abhishek, thank you so much for making the time. Thank you so much for sharing so many life stories and photography stories and experience stories with us. I think it's not just your technical photography. I think you inspire a lot of people in how you have taken your journey forward, in how you've built yourself as a photographer, how you've put your name out there. I think you've gone ground up, and I think people really see it, and that's what they admire in you. That's what you have left me with after this conversation. Such a delight talking to you. Can you tell our audience where they can find you on social media, your website, and everywhere else that you're present?
So you can follow me on Instagram. I'm on Instagram as Abhishek Khanna. There is a single K in between. So it's just continuous. If you just probably type my name, I'll be happy if I show up in the search results.
Google page 1.
Yeah, so that means that my SEO is right. Yes, I'm also in Behance. I share most of the pictures. I mean, since when you're shooting for one particular brand, they will always end up looking repetitive. So I share my project-wise work on Behance, and Instagram is majorly for showcasing my individual pictures. Also, I'm on the web. Just Google Abhishek Khanna, and hopefully you'll find me there. I'm also on Facebook, but Instagram is where I'm majorly active on. And I think Instagram is a great tool to connect with like-minded people who are in the same industry and doing the same thing that you love doing. And I'm always there. People keep on reaching out with questions, and I'm more than happy to answer them. So I'm not saying I'm the expert, but whatever I know, I try to share as much as I can. If you have something for me and you can reach out and I can answer that for you, then I think nothing else I can ask for.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for making the time. Such a pleasure speaking to you. I'm sure our audience will be extremely inspired and pumped after listening to everything you had to say. So thank you, Abhishek.
Thank you, Jyotima, and wonderful to be talking. I hope to do another session soon, maybe something around some other topics. But I mean, it was really good to be chatting with you.
So that was Abhishek Khanna, and I think he was amazing. I mean, he really speaks from the heart. We were on a video call and I could see him. That guy talks from the heart, and you can kind of see that in his work as well. He's so inspiring and at so many different levels. And I hope that just listening to him gave you a fairly good idea of what goes on behind the scenes in the commercial food photography world, and also how it's changed over the years, what you can expect from it now, what are some challenges that can come your way, and just so much more, just even on a personal level. He was so honest, he was so open about his journey. And I think even though our journeys overlap at many different levels, I felt pumped, I felt inspired, I felt amazing. Such a great guy, such a cool guy, like I said, and so inspiring. Really, guys. So as he said, He's always open to questions, and so am I. So if you guys have any questions on food photography, commercial food photography, or anything business related or mindset related, please shoot it to either Abhishek or myself, and we will be happy to answer any questions that you have. All right, guys, with that, if you enjoyed this episode, please do leave a rating and a review. And if you want to see any other guests on the podcast, then please do let me know as well. Just send me a DM on Instagram, just send me an email, and I'll get cracking. With that, guys, I'm going to take your leave, and I'll see you next week with another episode. Bye-bye.